Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. So first of all, I'd like to ask who has already read an article on Wikipedia? Could you please raise your hand, please? Thank you. And who has already contributed to an article on Wikipedia? Oh, cool. Great. So I'm going to attempt to decipher the equation of women in Wikipedia. Once again, as Karen mentioned, it's a very delicate topic when you're talking about gender. So we are going to go through some initial definitions to sort of place the topic right. Imagine a world in which every single person on the planet is given free access to the sum of all human knowledge. This is what Wikipedia stands for. Wikipedia's goal is to create a collaborative online encyclopedia based on voluntary contributions. Every day, thousands of contributors use Wikipedia's editing and discussion pages, thus contributing to the world's biggest collection of knowledge. The opening words that you get on the website are, "Welcome to Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia that anyone can edit." It summarizes the key mission of what it stands for, the collaboration and the creation of free knowledge by everyone, regardless of their academic backgrounds, qualifications, country of residence, age, or gender. And although this digital inclusion vision has been criticized as utopian, it still remains central to the project that is Wikipedia. Now, I'd like to give you a few facts. I won't go through all the numbers, but 21 billion pages viewed per month in all languages. There's a core of 90,000 active contributors around the world that are working at improving the quality and the content of the articles. And just a snapshot for Switzerland, it is the 5th most visited website in the world, and we have locally 2,000 active contributors that are building content. Now, when Wikipedia started in 2001, because it was initially a tech product, it was naturally skewed towards men, because at this time there were more men working in technology-related fields. And I think this is important to bear in mind, but what we've realized is that today there is definitely a gender gap that we can observe in the type of contributors that we have on the encyclopedia. There are several statistics that you can find. I actually dug out the most recent one was done by MIT and U, and that was 16%. So 16% of contributors on Wikipedia are women, but it varies. There are lots of figures you'll be able to come across, but essentially the idea is that there is a gender gap. Diversity is an extremely important element of Wikipedia. It refers to both difference and variety. In a sociological definition, the term diversity is about creating equal opportunities and encouraging variety. Considering diversity is a major component of successful collaborative work, it makes sense to question the male-to-female ratio observed on Wikipedia. Many questions are still unanswered. It is work in progress, and indeed we are still trying to decipher the gender gap. What I would like to specify, because this is really important, is that we're not talking about men and women in a biological sense, but rather as a social and cultural construct, as something that is learned and can therefore be changed. The idea is not to fall into cliches of men and women, but rather to address this notion on the basis of female and male perspectives. It goes beyond the binary concept of masculinity versus femininity. And I will ask you to keep this in mind throughout the talk, because I will refer to women, but actually what we are talking about is women's perspective. So what are the reasons for women's low participation on the encyclopedia? There are several that have been listed by some institutions that have carried some research. The lack of time comes as one of those. It's due to personal circumstances, work, family. It actually also applies to men, not only women. It has been observed that many people, when they start a family and they used to be active contributors, they slow down or stop and maybe get back to it later for obvious reasons. Media preferences, this is an important one. Women prefer other media activities than editing Wikipedia. They prefer mostly social media, such as Facebook or Pinterest applications, to name a few. Social networking and communication opportunities with family, friends, and acquaintances seem to be the underlying reason for women to prefer other medias. According to the international survey Women on the Web, women in most parts of the world spend more time on social media than men do, and mainly do so for the purpose of networking and communication. Technology and usability. Technical difficulties such as Wikipedia's complex structure with its different types of pages can sort of put off women in the sense that it doesn't look like a particularly attractive platform to use. There are certain editor features that are a little bit complex, and therefore the use of code, for instance, sometimes puts off certain people to contribute. Support and accessibility. According to the editor survey in 2001, so this is just to situate, this is a survey carried by the Wikimedia Foundation throughout the world, and they don't do them every year. The last one was in 2011. 43% of editors had to deal with their contributions being deleted without any explanation. Women perceive a dominance of male group, so contributors deleting their apologies for that. Basically, people have had their contributions deleted for no reason, and it discouraged people to actually contribute to the encyclopedia. And this actually goes on to atmosphere and tone. Again, according to the same survey, 23% of female editors have been subject to harassment in Wikipedia, which is a pretty big statistic. Women rate the tone of discussion more negatively than men do. They have observed rough manner, power struggles, the use of vicious verbal words, sexist comments, as well as general avoidance of gender-sensitive language. Essentially, research shows that men are more prone to keep pushing the buttons until they get it right, and that women are more likely to give up, which also explains why certain women start editing and then stop, because they find that the conflict that you will have on the discussion page is sometimes is not an interest to them, and they just quit their editing. I'll give you an example of, I'm not sure you can read it, so an example of the kind of comments that you can find. This is not the worst one, but it sort of gives you an idea, and it's interesting because it applies to the article of Rosalind Franklin. She was an English chemist and X-ray crystallographer who made critical contributions to the understanding of DNA. And there has been a lot of debate of what should appear on her page and what shouldn't. And this contributor writes, following someone who had put a comment explaining that she had struggles when she studied at King's College in terms of being a woman, and she didn't have the same areas to have her food, and she had to be sort of segregated from the male community. Quote, "It is unfortunate that certain people use the life of a brilliant woman as a platform for their feminist man-hating views, and that they would attempt this by using a dead woman who is unable to correct them to do this." So that gives you an idea of the sort of sarcasm that you can find, and that can sort of put people off. So what are the implications for this content distortion? So typically in the case of Rosalind Franklin, biographies of female authors or politicians or researchers are underrepresented. There will, in certain articles, you will have male perspective dominating, such as there'll be more content about maybe military history rather than a sociological approach. And then there's the use of stereotypes. So women's biographies will have information about the fact that they are mothers and the children and the life of their families, which might not necessarily apply to the biographies of men. So what would additional female perspective bring to the encyclopedia? It would bring quality and balance. Indeed, having more articles written by authors with women's perspective will boost the quality. It would help achieve a much needed increase in the variety of topics contained in Wikipedia. The idea is not to have more female topics written by women, sort of the cliche I was talking about earlier on, but having further women's perspective will naturally bring extended viewpoints. Meaning, bringing to existing articles different angles and narratives, maybe presenting more sociological approaches, for instance. Having more women contributing would benefit the Wikipedian community as follows. The scope and diversity of topics would expand. Existing topics would include extra viewpoints. The atmosphere and the quality of communications would improve. It would add further respect and constructive criticism. And the image of the project would overall improve and become more attractive to new editors, male and female. So to give you an idea of the practical things that Wikipedia is trying to develop in order to counter the gender gap we observe, a task force on Wikipedia is a group of editors devoted to the management of a particular issue or topic. It's essentially a coordination page between a variety of projects that are trying to counter the issue at stake. The aim of the task force is to address all the ways in which the gender gap affects the position of women on Wikipedia and their absence from it as article subjects, editors, and readers. Issues include editor interaction, the way policies and guidelines are written, our dispute resolution process, the way admins are elected, notably guidelines. Yes, because this is one of the controversies. There are mostly male administrators on Wikipedia. There are many categories to explore on this page, so I don't actually have the time to really go in the detail and everything it gives out. But if you are interested in the topic, I would highly advise that you take a look at what is there. And what is also very interesting is that at the moment, the Gender Gap Task Force is going through, let's say, a phase of turmoil with people that are actually disagreeing about the definitions of feminism and what this actually group is aiming for. And it's interesting to see that it definitely reflects the debate that we're currently having about gender and what it means to be a feminist. This is an initiative. I don't know if you've ever heard of an edit-athon. It is essentially the contraction between editing and a marathon. So people meet up in a space at a given time, and they actually have a mission. So maybe they will write about a specific topic or try to complete a number of articles or create new ones. This one is a famous one that happened in February 2014 called Art and Feminism, which had quite a big impact. It spread to 28 cities in 5 different countries, and 600 people were involved. You had 100 articles were created out of it, and 90 articles were improved. So it had a pretty big impact. Women Edit events are a way to bring the female voices, writers, and editors in the Wikipedia community. Although edit-athons aren't always about women edits, it is interesting to see that there are more and more of those activities emerging. The idea for this specific one was to increase the number of female artists represented, add citations, or beef up biographies on the encyclopedia. The workshops help to understand how Wikipedia functions, how to edit, how to source, what are the various rules, and to encourage women to participate to building the encyclopedia. For instance, the association Wikimedia CH plans to organize women edit-athons in 2015. So if anybody is interested in those events, so please feel free to come and talk to me about it, because we're definitely considering to organize a few next year. Maybe you've heard of Ada Lovelace. I'd like to talk about her case, and it was an opportunity to put this poster that was about actually an edit-a-thon for women. Ada Lovelace was an English mathematician and writer. She actually is described as the world's first computer programmer. So you can imagine how some male developers have reacted when this was actually written in the encyclopedia. She is a major figure when people think of women's biographies, as there are many debates about what should or shouldn't figure on her page. And consensus isn't exactly reached when it comes to the story of her life and the fact that she wrote the first algorithm ever. And that was in 1852, so that gives you an idea. So she is seen as the founder of scientific computing. And this poster comes from the Bryn Mawr College, which is a highly selective women's liberal arts college in Pennsylvania in the US. It's interesting to see that those events are happening more and more. The Ada Lovelace case was so big that there is actually a day dedicated to her in October, which is the Ada Lovelace Initiative. And this is a day where people try to edit about women in science. Maybe you've heard of Anita Sarkeesian. So the idea was to show you a more contemporary case of harassment. And it is very interesting because it echoes to your talk when it comes to women and video games. So she's a Canadian-American feminist, media critic and blogger. And she was a victim of some serious cyber harassment, which is a crime. For instance, it came to a point where there was a game that was developed where you could basically punch her face and you would bruise her face in the game. So this is like the kind of extremes you can have in terms of cyber harassment. She is the author of the video blog Feminist Frequency and the video series Tropes versus Women and Tropes versus Women in Video Games, which examines the plots and damsel in distress scenarios and the depiction of women in popular culture. The point isn't to have an opinion about whether it is good or bad or to have an opinion about it all, but it's just to mention that she was a victim of serious harassment on her Wikipedia page that got vandalized, and she received some terrible messages from very angry people that did not like her, the way she freely expressed her opinion. In conclusion, after showing those different cases, I would like to say that Wikipedia's commitment to producing and publishing free knowledge is without doubt exemplary, but there are many challenges we need to overcome. Obviously, the scenario I showed you right now is very bleak, and I spoke about the negative things because this is what we're interested in improving. And the idea isn't to stigmatize Wikipedia as a place where women are not welcome. The idea is actually to engage women to participate to the encyclopedia. Because we want to continue publishing a rich variety of high-quality articles in the future, efforts to consciously shape the social face of the Wikipedia community are going to become increasingly important. Diversity is definitely a key element of this type of collaboration. It is our responsibility to carry women's perspective in the encyclopedia for it to be truly representative of our society. Let's focus on trying to engage women and inspire them to contribute. Basically, we're starting to ask, just a point of interest, women actually respond very well to social help. There has been an initiative, for instance, to find Wikipedia ambassadors in campuses, and 40 to 50% of those candidates are women. It's interesting to see that when you actually ask women to participate, they do respond very positively, and that is why workshops such as editathons are very useful in terms of introducing Wikipedia to women. Women don't necessarily believe that they have the credibility to participate to Wikipedia, and this is exactly an argument that we're trying to change. Everybody is welcome in the encyclopedia, and its diversity will improve its content. If Wikipedia's target is to gather the sum of all human knowledge, it is essential that we attempt to bridge the gender gap. I'd like to thank you for your attention, and thank you for having me. In Wikipedia. Once again, as Karen mentioned, it's a very delicate topic when you're talking about gender. So we are going to go through some initial definitions to sort of place the topic right. Imagine a world in which every single person on the planet is given free access to the sum of all human knowledge. This is what Wikipedia stands for. We already contributed to an article on Wikipedia. Oh, cool. Great. So I'm going to attempt to decipher the equation of women. It summarizes the key mission of what it stands for, the collaboration and the creation of free knowledge by everyone, regardless of their academic backgrounds, qualifications, country of residence, age, or gender. And although this digital inclusion vision has been criticized as utopian, it still remains. Wikipedia's goal is to create a collaborative online encyclopedia based on voluntary contributions. Every day, thousands of contributors use Wikipedia's editing and discussion pages, thus contributing to the world's biggest collection of knowledge. The opening words that you get on the website are, "Welcome to Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia that anyone can edit." Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. So first of all, I'd like to ask who has already read an article on Wikipedia? Could you please raise your hand, please? Thank you. And who has already